In this tutorial, we're going to cover some of the naming rules for MATLAB. There are specifically 5, but 4, the first 4, are rules that you absolutely cannot violate. The 5th is a rule that you should not violate, but MATLAB will allow you to, and we'll cover why that is in a minute. So starting at number 1, and I guess before we do that, let's again talk or reiterate the point that in a programming environment like MATLAB, one of the things that we seek to do is abstract out the references references to information. So instead of referencing a value, we want to reference the name. And so a lot of you have learned that variables are something that can change, and that's great. That's basically definition by definition. And that's not your fault. That's just what you were told. But another way to think about a variable is this. You should start to think about variables as a container. A variable by its name, so if we say something like apple equals 2 plus 2, so now apple equals 4. And so the way that I would urge you to start thinking about this is that apple is a container, and it currently stores a value of 4, but it could very easily store anything else. I mean, apple could equal 10. Apple could equal 100. Apple could equal 1,000. Actually messed up my spacing there. Oops. So now apple is a container. Anytime I want to use apple, so if I want to say stuff equals 2 times apple, oops, I forgot my equals. There we go. Stuff equals 2 times apple, then stuff now equals 2,000. But if apple had been 10 or 100 or 4, then we would have had 20 or 200 or 2,000 or 8. So, this is what it means to abstract referencing information. And again, I would urge you, this is a container. It can store anything we want. And we showed, we showed that there were 3 different types of information that we were going to be using in the previous example. Simple numeric answers that were one value, a 1-by-1 array. Then a matrix or an array that had multiple rows and multiple columns. And then last, a string. So now let's talk about how we can name these things: apple, stuff, array, sting, or strings, or whatever we have. So the first rule is this, that variables in MATLAB, or at least their names, can only consist of letters, numbers, and the underscore character. So there are several common violations of this, so we'll cover what they are. So obviously, if I have B4 equals today, okay, I'm saying there's a character string called today that I'm saving into B4, but if I have 4 equals and 7 years ago, that doesn't work. And the reason is that this takes us to our second name, and these first 2 go together. The 4th goes with the first 2. The 3rd one is by itself, and the 5th one, again, we'll get to it when we get to it. But letters, numbers, and underscore characters, and I sort of went out of order here, but it must begin with a letter. So this 4 doesn't begin with a letter. So again, if the first 4 we absolutely cannot violate, MATLAB will not allow us to do so. It doesn't matter why at this point, just we can't. So again, the letters, numbers, and underscore. So let's say we asked for a favorite number, or we wanted to save it. So favorite underscore num equals 2, and it says undefined function or variable fav. What about AVB? No, it doesn't matter. MATLAB's trying to help us fix this problem, but we're not going to be able to. So if I press the up arrow, and then I have fav underscore num, now that works. Sometimes people try to put a dash in between. That doesn't work either. Okay, because that's saying fav minus num equals 2. It's not what you think it is. So we really need to stick to letters, numbers, and underscore characters only. Must begin with a letter. And then the fourth was that variable names cannot be longer than 63 characters. So let's just do this. We'll be a little absurd. We'll get it to be really, really, really long. I'm not really sure where 63 is, so we'll just say equals 1. We'll press enter, and now you can see that MATLAB has truncated that entire thing down to this whatever that is, which is really just the first part here. Okay, and the reason for this isn't important. Again, we're just covering the beginnings of programming in the MATLAB environment, but it has to do with memory management. You can't have more than 63 characters. There aren't a lot of times where people that are beginner programmers are going to violate this rule, but I will tell you that down the line you're going to start writing programs that have the potential to start making their own names. For instance, if you have a chemistry experiment and your chemistry experiments, or multiple chemistry experiments, and you have multiple runs, they happen on different days, so maybe part of your file name is the date. Different technicians, so maybe part of the file name is who conducted the experiment. Different samples, so part of the file name is different materials, so it's very easy to get past 63 characters. But for most beginning programmers, this isn't a rule that you're even going to get near touching. So that covers, again, letters, numbers, and underscore characters must begin with a letter, and then variable names cannot be longer than 63 characters. For number 3, names are case sensitive. So let's look over here. We have something called stuff. So if I type stuff, MATLAB will tell me what stuff is. If I say stuff with a capital S, MATLAB will say undefined function or variable stuff, and it's because of this capital S. So did you mean stuff? We'll say, yeah, sure, that's what I meant. But this rule really isn't about when you're naming variables. This is about when you're using the names of variables. So case sensitivity matters because you have to be specific down to the very letter. All right, so the last one is you should not use the name of a built-in function. Now, these first 4 rules, MATLAB will not let you violate. I've shown you that. This last rule, MATLAB will let you violate. And you shouldn't use the name of a built-in function, and the reason is this. So again, we covered CLC, how it cleared the command window last time, so I'm just going to type CLC, press enter. I'm going to bring my naming rules back into my command window from my command history. So I have my naming rules because we're really focused on this 5th one right here. You should not use the name of a built-in function as a variable name. And the reason why MATLAB will allow you to do this is, again, I showed you in a previous tutorial just a sampling of some of the built-in functions that are available to you in this program. And there is such a large volume, or there are so many of these things, that it's not reasonable to assume that you would know all of them. So MATLAB will allow you to use those names. You should try to avoid them if you know that they are a built-in function name. And the reason for that is this. So I'm going to say sine d of 90. Now this is the sine function, but in degrees. So the sine of 90 degrees is 1. And again, let's be specific. I forgot. So let's say, let's call it B and M equals the sine d of 90. Okay. Now let's also say that the sine d equals 78. So now I've saved, because again the flow of information goes from right to left, so I've saved the sine of 90 into B and M, that's 1. I've also saved 78 into sine d, so now sine d is 78. Well, now I have a problem, because now if I take my previous command over here in the command window and just drag it out and drop it, now I would like the sine d of 90, MATLAB's going to give me an error, and it says index exceeds matrix dimensions. MATLAB again is matrix laboratory, so now what it's looking for is actually the 90th element in sine d, because the way MATLAB works is this. I'm looking for sine d. The very first place I'm looking to use sine d, the very first place MATLAB goes to find it is here in the workspace. Well, there's something in here called sine d, so now MATLAB's going to forget that there's a sine d function anywhere else because it found sine d right here. The second place MATLAB's going to look is over here in the current folder. And the third place it's going to look is in its repository of functions. So if you've saved a variable as a built-in function, you've basically broken the capability of the function. But this is just very easy, okay? You type clear space sine d, and after that we can again utilize the sine d function. So again, this rule, you should not use the name of a built-in function as a variable name. It's not even reasonable that you would know all of them, but if you did, you can just clear out whatever that is, and you can keep going with all of the other information that you've already generated in your workspace. So those are the 5 naming rules. So till next time.